Now, to kick off, to start us off, let's look at the Standard Chartered results, which were very impressive. And the bank reported an 87% pre-tax profits, climbing to 6.5 million shillings. Your analysis of these figures?
I think, one, it's a reflection of, I think for me, two key factors. One, a growth in the loan base in terms of advances during the quarter at a time when the interest rates were fairly high. So I believe that they were able to lend at fairly competitive rates at that period, at a time when interest rates were very high. So I think for them the interest income increased significantly, both in the consumer business and in the wholesale business, as well as the fact that I think they're also coming from a lower base in the first quarter of from the first quarter of 2011. I think their results have been down about 15%. So they're also coming from a lower base. But I see, in my view, that those are quite impressive results.
It's interesting, Einstein, that the cost-income ratio, is one of the lowest. It's actually at 38% in the first half of the year, compared to 48% the same period last year. And when we compare it to its peers, Barclays Bank, Equity Bank, as well as the KCB, which are 50+%, there's something that they're doing which is different from the rest.
I think that Standard has been fairly consistent in terms of efficiency, and right from the, quite a number of years ago, they have been at the forefront in terms of investing in technology and being able to being a very cost-efficient bank. So I think it's a confirmation of that consistent strategy that has been there over the years in terms of delivering efficiency, and also in terms of utilizing to the best of their maximizing on the network and the technology that they've already invested in.
Mm-hmm. Another bank releasing the results was Cooperative Bank, with pre-tax profits up 21% to 5.01 billion. Your analysis on this stock, I know Cooperative Bank is actually 16% this year.
Yes, the share price has also been up 16%. Again, also a reflection of a continued growth in the customer deposit base. I think there are almost 3 million customers now, and I think it's also a reflection of the growth in their loan book. I think again at a time when interest rates were also fairly high. So I think it's also a reflection of the fact that there's been quite some significant expansion in the business for the bank.
Let's then focus, Einstein, look at Scan Group, which is Kenya's top marketing firm, and it posted an 11% rise in pre-tax profits for the first half of the year. Yes. Compare this to 96%, last year in 2011. And there's a bit of concern here. What led to this?
In my own view, I think it's the first half of this year has been quite challenging in terms of for the economy. If you look at some of the statistics that are released by then the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicating a slower growth for quarter one, I think in terms of ad spend, there's been probably a lower expenditure on advertising during that particular half of the year. So in my view, I think it's a reflection of the economy. Likely, maybe that the second half could be better if you look at from a business perspective in terms of the corporate expenditure on advertising. It may be better in the second half, but I think the first half performance is really a reflection of the economy during the first half of the year.
Let's then focus, Einstein, and look at the telecommunication industry, and Safaricom is in the news. Yes. It's saying it's looking at actually venturing into the fixed line business, where Telkom Orange is, not the best news that Orange would like to hear at the moment.
Yes, I think we don't have the full details on exactly how they're going to go about it, but I think obviously it doesn't mean very good news for the some of the competitors, and I think it's, in my own view, again, it's yet another confirmation of Safaricom's desire to significantly diversify its revenue base and also utilize its existing significant subscriber net base to be able to offer alternative channels of communication. So I think it's a venture that I think will be interesting to watch as it develops. Mm-hmm. Yes.
On the other hand, ICEA, which owns the EU Mobile, is said to be it's actually it looks like it's going to come out from the Kenyan market.
Yes, I think this story had come out about a year ago. There's been quite a news on and off. With communications at the parent company level indicating that those are the developments. And I think looking at the media reports indicating that from a local perspective, they are indicating that that's not the case. But I think it could be a confirmation of the challenges that that the business is facing in terms of trying to grow its market share in an environment where there is very significant high-level competition. And that I think is a reflection of the challenges that are being experienced in terms of trying to grow the business further.
Something interesting, Einstein, was Sasini. It actually said it announced a profit warning, and it said the profits might go down by more than 25%. It seems it's only the banks that are making the good profits in the sector.
Yes. I think when you look at the rest of the economy, there are quite a number of challenges that have been experienced, particularly high interest rates. That obviously is something that affects the costs of any particular business. And I think you're quite rightly, we're also in a very competitive market environment. And at a time when the economy is facing challenges, competition becomes even stiffer. And I think that is also therefore why you're seeing there's been some lopsided performance in terms of the performance of the various companies. I think for the banking sector, I think it's an issue of the interest rates. And also there's also, of course, the need to also look at the asset quality, going forward. So I think this is just a snapshot of what's been going on in the economy. I think there's much more that you're likely to see in terms of as time evolves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you look at the shilling, it has been hemmed in the 84.0, 85.50 for the last 4 weeks. What's your outlook for the shilling, moving into the next week?
I think one factor that is important to bear in mind is the level of interest rates. Interest rates have now been on a sustained decline, particularly because inflation now is at single-digit level. It's going to be very important to monitor the performance, particularly as interest rates are declining, because you realize that there's quite a number of inflows of funds that were targeting investment in the fixed income market last year when interest rates increased quite significantly. So I think on a short-term basis, the shilling is fairly stable because we've got inflows from, for instance, the diaspora remittances. We've got proceeds of some of the offshore loans. But I think the long-term view really is that the structure of our economy really needs to be more export-based than import-based in order to ensure that the shilling is not as vulnerable as it was last year.
Yeah, and just mention about the export and the imports. And Fitch came out with a report saying that Kenya's economic status is pretty strong. It gave it actually a B plus. A B plus rating, but warned on the ratio of the GDP, the debt to GDP, and saying it could be a problem, moving forward.
Yes, I think that's a genuine concern, because obviously if you look at the rates of interest that have been prevailing in the last, say, 1 year, obviously the government has been borrowing at fairly high cost. And also going forward with a devolved government structure that has serious financial implications, it means that the revenue requirements, the financing requirements is going to be very high. So a lot needs to happen in terms of being able to structure the government expenditure in a way that ensures that we are able to manage our finances and also therefore have a stable debt. So I think it's a genuine issue, and I think the report also highlights the cost. The cost of that debt to the economy. Yes.
And of course, the government has put the government's budget is $1.5 trillion. Sorry, trillion shillings for the year, compared to 1.1 for the last financial year. Let's move on to the stock market. Lastly, what are your stock picks for next week?
I think a lot that's been happening in the market right now has to do with the announcements of half year results. I think that's a factor that's driving the markets, corporate earnings announcements. I mean, we are expecting now more companies now to start announcing their results, particularly the companies that have their financial year ends in June. The likes of East African breweries, the energy companies, that's Kenya Power, Lighting, Kenyan, and I think that is, and also I think Uchumi will also be announcing their final year results. So in my view, I think. I think the banking sector has more or less now, concluded in terms of the earnings results. So I think the focus now will be more on the manufacturing sector and looking at how that imply, how the financial results would imply on the, on the stock market.
Mm-hmm. So briefly, your expectations on the Kenya Power and the Kenyan, just very briefly.
I think on Kenyan, I think that's driven really by the financing requirements, because the energy sector requires heavy expenditure. I think they've recently launched geothermal, launched a power plant. So I think the expenditure on those projects will remain, a key factor. And also, generally for the energy sector, for both those companies, issues of tariff reviews and the fact that these have they're affected by, government policy, and also the view that you probably need to cushion the population from significant energy costs. So I think those are some of the key concerns that one would be looking at, ahead of the results.